The camera opens inside the Oval Office, where the weight of American governance seems to press into every corner of the room. Reporters shuffle, lenses tighten, and a familiar figure steps forward to speak with the force of someone who believes he has been vindicated. Donald Trump faces the press just moments before signing the bill that ends what has now become the longest federal government shutdown in United States history. The atmosphere is thick with expectation, political fatigue, and the calculated urgency of a country trying to move forward after weeks of stalemate. Trump begins with the words that will dominate headlines across Washington. Today, we're sending a clear message that we will never give in to extortion. His voice is firm, sharpened by weeks of confrontation with congressional Democrats. The president continues, because that's what it was. They tried to extort. The Democrats tried to extort our country. The room remains silent for a moment, absorbing the gravity of the accusation. As the cameras zoom in, his expression is unwavering. After 30-plus days of partial paralysis across federal departments, millions of delayed paychecks, shuttered services, halted programs, the message he wants the American public to remember is one of battle lines and betrayal. Trump leans on the lectern, speaking directly into the camera. The crisis, he suggests, was not just a budgetary impasse, but a deliberate political attack that forced the nation into a standoff. He turns toward the American people with a pointed warning. So I just want to tell the American people, you should not forget this, he says, underlining each word. When we come up to midterms and other things, don't forget what they've done to our country. His tone is less administrative and more campaign-charged, signaling that even as the shutdown ends, the political war it unleashed will stretch into the next election cycle. The Oval Office carries a symbolic weight. The polished wooden desk, the framed flags, the hush that falls between every sentence. This is the seat of executive authority, and Trump uses it to project strength after a lengthy and bruising confrontation with Congress. For weeks, the impasse left thousands of government workers uncertain of their paychecks, delayed numerous court proceedings, and forced airports into understaffed chaos. National parks, museums, and federal agencies bore the brunt. The president knows that public frustration has reached a critical peak, and his message seeks to channel that anger toward his opponents. The pen he is about to use to sign the bill sits on the resolute desk, gleaming under the light. Before he picks it up, he delivers one more message about the direction of his administration now that the shutdown is ending. So with my signature, he states, glancing down at the document, the federal government will now resume normal operations. It almost sounds like a promise after a long winter. He goes further, outlining the goals he wants to highlight as the government returns to work. And my administration and our partners in Congress will continue our work to lower the cost of living, restore public safety, grow our economy, and make America affordable again for all Americans. As he finishes, the room shifts back into motion. Aides move across the background, journalists raise their microphones, and camera shutters clap like distant applause. The shutdown, which had consumed the national conversation and strained millions of households, is finally over. But the political narrative is far from resolved. Trump's framing of the standoff as an act of extortion by Democrats ensures that the conflict's aftermath will reverberate through the next legislative fights and perhaps define key themes of the upcoming elections, the broader context of how this shutdown became the longest in American history. What began as a disagreement over budget priorities escalated into a stalemate when negotiations collapsed over disagreements tied to spending allocations, emergency funding, and political leverage. Each passing day compounded the economic consequences, with the Congressional Budget Office estimating billions in lost productivity. Federal employees who had become unwilling symbols of partisan struggle marched in protest across the country, demanding an end to the deadlock inside the White House. Trump's advisors grappled with the political blowback. Meanwhile, House and Senate leaders exchanged public criticisms, each side blaming the other for the economic hardships inflicted on ordinary families. Trump's decision today to characterize the standoff as extortion sets a new rhetorical standard and solidifies the divide that will likely influence legislative cooperation for months to come. The narration moves back into the Oval Office. The presidential seal is framed neatly behind Trump as he prepares for the signing. Reporters track every movement in that moment. The visuals emphasize not only the authority of the presidency, but also the political theatre that Washington has become accustomed to. The ceremony unfolds with a mixture of relief and lingering tension. Relief that the shutdown is ending, tension from unresolved ideological battles that will inevitably return. As Trump inks the document, he nods toward his staff and lawmakers present, acknowledging their roles, though his earlier remarks make clear that the political fault lines remain sharply drawn. The federal government is reopening, but the bitterness of the recent standoff hangs in the air, a reminder that governance in Washington has become increasingly combative. The significance of Trump's message about midterms, his warning that Americans should not forget this, underscores how the shutdown has transformed from a governance failure into a powerful political narrative. It signals that his administration plans to wield the shutdown as evidence of democratic obstruction, rallying his base while pressuring congressional opponents. Political strategists on both sides already anticipate that ads, speeches and debates will revisit this moment repeatedly. Outside the White House, reactions to Trump's speech are instantaneous. Supporters applaud his refusal to concede under pressure, framing the shutdown as a necessary stand against what they view as partisan sabotage. Critics, however, argue that the president is reframing a crisis of his own making, one that left countless federal workers struggling to pay rent, mortgages and medical bills. Some lawmakers say the shutdown was avoidable from the very beginning, suggesting that compromise could have prevented economic fallout. The narration shifts to scenes of federal workers returning to government buildings, the Department of Agriculture, the IRS offices, TSA checkpoints and national parks. These images show the human cost of political decisions. Families who missed multiple paychecks exhale with relief as operations begin to stabilize. Yet the uncertainty of future political battles leaves many wary of the next confrontation that could disrupt their livelihoods. In Washington, analysts weigh the significance of Trump's claim that Democrats engaged in extortion. The word carries serious rhetorical weight, emphasizing a sense of coercion and political harm. By framing the shutdown as extortion, Trump positions himself and his administration as defenders of the nation against internal political threats. His insistence that Americans remember this moment in future elections suggests a long-term strategy to reshape voter perceptions. Back in the Oval Office, Trump's tone is steeped in defiance, but also in a desire to reassert control after weeks of national disruption. His promise to lower costs of living, restore public safety, and grow the economy mirrors long-standing themes of his political platform. He underscores his administration's focus on affordability, signaling that economic issues will remain central in the months ahead. The narration widens to examine how this shutdown reflects deeper systemic tensions in American governance. The breakdown in negotiations illustrated how political polarization can bring the federal system to a standstill. Each side believed it was defending core principles, yet the result was a paralysis that affected millions who had little to do with the congressional battles unfolding behind closed doors. Political commentators begin dissecting the possible aftermath. Will this shutdown weaken trust in the federal government? Will it galvanize public demand for reforms to prevent future shutdowns? Or will it amplify partisan divides in ways that make compromise even more difficult? These questions circulate through interviews, news panels and op-eds as the country processes the significance of Trump's accusations.